Damon, how are you, my friend?
Well, yeah, I'm fine. I'm not sure about my, my thing I sit on.
Oh, why? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been the last 3 days, I have been pedaling my bicycle with a bunch of other guys and girls across France on a charity bike ride called the Halo 250. 250 is obviously the miles we cover in the 3 days. But I bought, it's very expensive. I had a very expensive seat fit. And I thought, right, I'm going to do it properly this time. Anyway, they sold me this saddle and I'm not quite sure it was right. Anyway, so I am sitting down now, but it's a little painful.
I'm surprised to see you sitting down. That's amazing. 250 miles in 3 days.
Yeah, it's 80 or 5 miles the first day. It was 110 the next day. They shortened that leg a little bit, and then it was 55 miles the last day. Last day's easy, but, you have to catch the ferry. That's the thing. And in France, this is a bit of a race, and you know how much I like to race, Tom. And so we were hammering across France. It was great. It was a headwind, so everyone was in a peloton, and we were wheel to wheel, and and rotating and all that stuff. It was good fun.
And you were racing?
Well,
sneaking down the inside of people?
I can't race them uphill, so I have to get them on the downhill. So, and there were some lovely downhill sections, and I had a cheeky overtake around the outside, a bit sort of Valentino Rossi, and it's good fun.
Oh, Damon, it's fantastic. You sound a bit Barry White-ish today, actually. Are you quite cooked?
I'm cooked. And it's exhausting. I mean, I'm 61, Tom. I'm not
250 miles, age 61.
I'm not a spring chicken anymore. When you get an event, when you've been used to doing races like I have all my life, you get pumped for an event. You can't help it, and you want to, give it everything you've got. So it's like F1. It just is relentless, Tom. Life is a lifelong battle. It's a struggle. It's the struggle that we enjoy, putting something in.
I thought you were about to start singing to me then. Life is a roller coaster or something. But hey, Damon, I'm hugely impressed, as I'm sure all of our listeners are. But should we talk Formula One?
Well, this is what we're here to do, Tom. We are here to talk about this amazing season, the new regulations, the change at the top, the kind of knocking on the door that Red Bull had, and the hinges fell off, didn't it, before they got to the end in the last few races. But this time, there's both cars stayed together, and they put one over, I think, on Ferrari in their backyard.
Welcome to F1 Nation with me, Tom Clarkson, and that man over there, the cyclist that is Damon Hill. So, Damon, we haven't caught up since Imola. What did you make of that? What did you make of that Red Bull 1-2?
Well, I thought it was a good competitive race. I mean, don't forget, it wasn't a walkover. And poor old Carlos Sainz could have been in the mix, but he's in the wards, and he's done something wrong. He needs to change the way he gets out of bed in the morning or something. He's having so much bad luck. It's really a bit unfair. But there you go. Charles was there and put the pressure on Bart. Red Bull, I think Max's Red Bull, and Sergio kept them honest as well. So they've done something right. The true performance and potential of that Red Bull was shown in Imola, and it looked not so easy for Ferrari. It was going to be a close race. So the championship is definitely game on.
Well, there were no development parts on the Ferrari at Imola, and I think this will have kick-started the need for them to start pushing stuff through now in Maranello. So we're going to see updates on that car in Miami this weekend. But it raises the question, we do talk about this quite a lot on the show, don't we? But which car, Damon, would you rather be driving now? Is it the Ferrari with updates coming, or the Red Bull, which had a whole host of upgrades in Imola that seemed to work? Yeah. Which one?
Well, the upgrade thing is a very interesting one because they've also got these constraints now that are going to apply to the teams that have had the most points from the previous season and so forth. So the restrictions on development, and I think it was Adrian you were talking to after Imola, and he was saying that they have to be very careful about when they bring these upgrades and which ones they apply, because they can't just throw stuff at it anymore. So they're sitting down and thinking about it, and it's a bit like playing poker. They need to know which card to lay down when. Do they play their ace now, or do they wait a couple of races until they're absolutely sure that what they're going to play is the winning hand? So it is going to be interesting. I'd like to see a season where you get leapfrogging. So maybe Ferrari come in, but maybe Red Bull have decided to hang on. They've played their little trump card at Imola, and they're hanging on for a bit. which is what Adrian was sort of suggesting, wasn't it? But maybe Ferrari now are going to come. Okay, we haven't been resting on our laurels. We haven't been, doing nothing and assuming we're going to succeed. We've got this package now, and we're going to bring it into play in Miami. Well, that would be good. So you get this. You can't predict the form, through the season, and that would be great.
Well, that's what Adrian Newey said, wasn't it? We had the fastest car this weekend in Imola, but that doesn't mean we're going to have the fastest car in Miami, in Barcelona, in Monaco. So I'm going to ask you this question again.
I didn't answer it. Did I not answer your question, Tom? Basically, you asked me which one would I go for, and I'm telling you, it's a very hard call. Would you completely rule out Mercedes? I mean, they've got a lot to think about, but perhaps they could throw themselves into the pot. They've basically... they again have even less resources that they can use because they've had so much success. So they're actually on the limit almost with how much development, wind tunnel, and all the rest of it they can do, and resources, financial resources. So,
Damon, I'm really interested that you've thrown Mercedes, into the mix there. They've got almost half the points in the Constructors' Championship of the leaders, Ferrari, and yet you still think they're going to be players.
Okay, they're off the pace. They're almost a second off the pace, right? But that's because they can't get their car low enough. And they can't get their car low enough because of this porpoising. You look at the front end of these cars now. They've got these underneath the bib, the little bit where the skid plate is at the front, just behind the driver's knees almost, vertically down, the bit that touches the ground. They've got these dampers. They're kind of fairly serious looking bits of kit that are doing something. And I'm wondering whether it's just simply a damper that when the car decks, it somehow stops it from springing back up again quite so much. So it could be the actual floor hitting that's setting off the oscillation. So anyway, there's some complicated bit of contraption underneath the front end of some of the cars. If Mercedes can work out how to get their car lower, and it's an exponential curve, so it doesn't go up linearly, it'll go up exponentially. So if you can get your car half a centimetre lower, you get maybe double the amount of downforce or efficiency. So they've got to control that really difficult increment in downforce. I mean, it wants to suck so hard that it actually wants to suck onto the ground, that you've got to get it as close as you can without it hitting a bump and then releasing and going into that crazy oscillation we saw. So we haven't seen the full potential of the Mercedes car, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I would agree with that. The wind tunnel numbers, I get told, are sensational. And if they can transfer what they're seeing in the wind tunnel onto the racetrack, it will be a race-winning car. But
yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking is because we're so early in the development of these new regulations. There's this really tantalizing massive carrot that's dangling right in front of them at Mercedes, but they can't get to it because every time they get too close to it, the guy with the stick just pulls it out of the way.
It's an interesting point as we go to Miami, brand new racetrack, new asphalt that is likely to be very, very smooth because it's new. I wonder whether that really could play into the hand.
Is it smooth or is it abrasive? I thought they made this special abrasive.
I'm talking in terms of bumps, actually.
And bumps. Oh, yeah. Okay, so
I think lack of bumps. You'd expect there to be very few bumps on a brand new circuit, wouldn't you? So whether that'll play into the hands of Mercedes, and maybe we start to see Lewis Hamilton I was going to say Lewis Hamilton and George Russell up at the sharp end, but hey, just quick mention of George Russell, 4th place.
No, he's done an absolutely brilliant job and is looking strong. I think Lewis has been a little unlucky, and I think he's been delving around and been happy to play the guy who tries the experimental setup for Mercedes a bit because he's got more experience with them. So perhaps he's gone the wrong way sometimes, and that has made him look worse off than he really is against George. But George is definitely doing a sterling job, and I think that's a very firm foundation for him going forward. I mean, he's not humiliated Lewis in any way. I don't think. I don't see it like that. I think, as I said, that Lewis is maybe he's a little bit downhearted a little bit as well, and George is very, very keen to establish himself, and he has to. Let's be honest. With the way this game is played, is if you come into a team and you've been brought in and you don't show your credentials pretty damn quick, then people start going, "Oh, no good." They don't waste any time before they start putting the dampers on someone. So he's done a good job, but whether that he can keep that up all season if Lewis finds what he needs from the car, we shall see.
Now, look, one final point about Imola I wanted to run through with you was Lando Norris.
Yeah.
He finishes third for the second year in a row. He loves that racetrack. I love talking tiers, what tiers are drivers in, right? If tier one is Lewis Hamilton, and it's something actually I put to Tom Christensen, 9-time Le Mans winner. But if you've got Lewis and Max and Charles Leclerc in tier one with the likes of Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, are they
tier one
in tier one, or are they tier one? They're
tier
both
one.
tier one.
Lando and I think George as well. Yeah. I think they're tier one drivers. I don't think I'd put them up as high as Charles Leclerc, and level. Max is exceptional. Max is something else, as is Lewis.
Oh, okay. So they're tier 1A.
1A, yeah.
A star. Okay.
I think so. Well, we haven't seen enough of the others, what they can do under a stress situation. How much fight they've got in them. I mean, we've seen with Charles, of course, Imola was an opportunity to consolidate, and he went for a move which was, it was just a little bit too ambitious. I mean, he called it greedy. And I was watching, sitting down, literally, I almost grabbed my wife's leg as he turned in, and I went, no, because they showed it from the onboard, didn't they? And the moment he turned in, you knew it was too much. I mean, I'm not even in the car, and I could see it on the telly. I was going, that is not going to work. Boom, spun off.
And is that what he means by too greedy, taking too much curb?
Yeah, it was one of those, I mean, he just thought, I'll launch it over the curb. And it was just far too ambitious. And you think, why do that when you've got so much responsibility? And that's the sort of thing that you need to weed out of your portfolio as a top driver. You can't be doing rash moves like that. It is, you look at Sergio. Sergio's a safe pair of hands. He's quick and he's a safe pair of hands. He hardly ever does anything crazy. He's really good.
Well, can I add another driver into that list? Lando Norris, safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
We know that having kids can change your life. Life becomes unpredictable. You find joy and laughter in the smallest things. But sometimes it's the bigger picture that can cause you stress. Because you do anything to protect your kids, right? Well, one easy way to do exactly that is with life insurance. With Fabric, planning for the future so you can enjoy the present has never been easier. Fabric makes getting a term life insurance policy for your family quick, easy, and surprisingly affordable. It was built specifically for parents to help you manage your family's financial future. What's great is that you can do it all online. It takes less than 10 minutes to apply, and you could be offered coverage instantly with no health exam required. But that's not all. Fabric's online hub is a quick and easy way to track your family finances all in one place. You can even set up your kids' college savings plan, create a will, or start a rainy day savings fund. And there's no risk to apply today. Fabric has a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. Protect your family with term life insurance now in just 10 minutes. Apply today at meetfabric.com/nation. That's meetfabric.com/nation to start protecting your family today. Meet, MEET, fabric.com/nation. Fabric Insurance Agency policies issued by Vantis Life, not available in New York and Montana. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Well, let's talk more about McLaren now. It's been a roller coaster season for the team so far. If you need reminding, in the season opening Bahrain Grand Prix, they were nowhere, 14th and 15th, almost a minute behind the winner. But in Imola, just 3 races later, as we've said, Lando Norris finished third.
That's P3. Hey, we just got another podium. Who would have thought? Awesome work, everyone. Nice to see you. How much you turned it around. Proud of you all. Well done.
It's been a remarkably fast turnaround for the Papaya team, and on Friday, while Damon was on his bicyclette in France, I spoke to the CEO of McLaren F1, Zak Brown, and he told me he didn't think the podium in Imola would be possible after that first race.
I left Bahrain feeling like 2017 all over again. And I thought, oh my, we spent 4 or 5 years improving from 2017. How did we end up back here? But great news is the team did an awesome job. And we identified why we were so poor in Bahrain. So while we're still only 4 races into it, so Bahrain still feels very raw, which is good because that keeps us motivated. I'm hoping Bahrain was a bit of a one-off because, as you know, we missed testing there. We had our brake duct issue. So generally, when everyone's testing at a racetrack, you can't run the new tires, et cetera. We can look back at Bahrain and then we kind of see why we were so poor.
And do you think now you're set on a good path, or do you think it might be track specific and we'll see it fluctuate a bit?
I think there's always an element of track specific. I'd like to think and hope that our low doesn't get as low as Bahrain, but we qualified right at the sharp end in Imola, and I'm sure, unfortunately, that probably won't be every weekend as well. So I think we'll ebb and flow, but I hope our highs get higher and our lows don't match Bahrain.
Zak, what kind of a leader are you? Because, you say after Bahrain, it was a low and you were thinking 2017. What do you say to the guys and girls in Woking after a race like that?
I believe in communication. I believe in empowering people. I believe in giving people an opportunity to fix things. I expect people to work together. I expect people to be transparent. I expect good teamwork. And that's why, you give yourself a chance to recover. Crying over spilt milk, as the saying goes, that doesn't achieve anything. Yelling and screaming at people, which I think some of the teams do, I don't think that achieves anything. I think what you got to do is buckle down and understand what's happened, work harder together as a team. And, it's no different in baseball. People back each other up in the outfield, in case the guy drops the ball, there's someone else there to grab it. So I think, and not making silly mistakes, but learning from mistakes. I think mistakes are good learning experiences as long as you learn from them. So I think it's a combination of all of that. And, Andreas is ultimately responsible for the performance of the racing team. So what's important is the team sees, which we are, Andreas and I, totally united. And so in a Bahrain situation, I know Andreas is on the case with his team. So I'm really here to support them on, what do they need from me to achieve. And in that instance, it was kind of give us some space, give us a chance to fix the issues. And it was, you've got it. And anything you need, let me know. So in that instance, not overreacting, I think, is what is key.
Let's talk specifically about Lando Norris now. Has he raised the bar again over the winter?
He has. I mean, he is, in my opinion, as good as anyone in Formula One. Unbelievably fast. But the part that, there's a lot of fast drivers in Formula One. I think the part I'm most impressed with Lando is how few mistakes he makes. And his mistakes are small. A track limit, say, locked up a brake. You haven't seen him many times put the car in the fence, run wide of a corner under pressure and make a mistake. He's, I think, as far as pure natural talent, I think he has as much as anyone in Formula One.
Do you think there's a risk that he's going to start getting frustrated about that first win? I mean, he came so close, didn't he, in Russia last year? Do you sense, what sort of character is he?
He's a very humble, loyal, fun guy who likes a family atmosphere. He's raised very well. He's very close with his family. His family are a great group of people. And I think he knows we don't have the fastest car on the grid. And that's why he signed up for as long as he did, is he knows we'll get there. He believes in us, and he really enjoys the environment. And I think as long as we continue to show forward progress, he'll be satisfied that his win is not far away. I mean, he could have won 3 races in a row last year, right? I mean, in Monza, there was nothing between he and Daniel. In Russia, had it not been for the call at the end of the race, that race was his to win. And okay, Spa he was the fastest person in qualifying by some margin all the way up until he had his accident. So he could have won 3 on the trot. So I don't think he's ready to win for sure. We just need to put him in a position to win.
And what do you make of his golf obsession? I think obsession is the right word now, Zak. Is it almost an...
I think it is.
It's almost an unhealthy obsession. Can you beat him?
I can, but it's getting harder and harder. And the more he plays, the harder it gets. And we have a couple matches coming up next week. So we'll see. I just got some new clubs, which I've been told are worth at least a few strokes aside. So it's close. You can tell his hand-eye coordination is pretty good. And when he hits it where he wants to hit it, he's unbeatable. Fortunately, he still gets some rookie moves in there every once in a while.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in that match. But what about Daniel Ricciardo, Zak? I mean, first up, is he more comfortable in this year's MCL 36 than he was last year's? Yeah,
I think for sure. His race days have been very, very strong, much better in qualifying. I think, listening to him earlier this week with the team, I think he still doesn't feel he's, 10 out of 10 on top of the car, but he's got a great relationship with Lando. He knows the team well. It was great he was able to go back to Australia for the first time in a couple of years and recharge the batteries and see the family. So we're really happy to see Daniel on top of his game.
And when will you start thinking about his longer term future with the team?
Probably later this year. We have another year together. We do like to think, long out, hence doing some testing with Pato, going to do some testing with Colton. We've got Ugo in Formula 4, who put it on pole his first race. So I don't think you can ever plan too early, but there's no rush.
Look, you mentioned a couple of IndyCar drivers there, which beautiful segue, Zak, onto the Miami Grand Prix coming up this weekend. I mean, how excited are you about this race? And what should Formula One fans expect this weekend?
I think it's going to be a show second to none. It's going to be packed. I've never seen a race with so much sponsor demand in hospitality. I mean, I believe we're the largest hospitality provider, certainly if not the largest one of, and we could double up, but it was sold out from the word go. I think the city's going to be booming. I think the promoter is going to be excellent. They know what they're doing. They own the Miami Dolphins. They've had the Super Bowl there not that long ago. So I think it's going to be a spectacular event.
And then, of course, we're going to have 3 races in America next year with Las Vegas joining the 2 that we have this year. Is that it, Zak? Is that enough for Formula One to complete its integration in the US?
Yeah, I think it is. You've also got Montreal and Mexico, so you got it surrounded. I think there are 3 unbelievable venues. Austin was, I believe, the biggest Grand Prix ever live attendance-wise last year. So that race is only getting stronger and stronger. Miami's a very international market. And, of course, Vegas is kind of what you think of Formula One with all the lights and the action. So I think you've got 3 unbelievable venues. You've got one south and north. So from an America standpoint, of course, Brazil. So I think we're really good in that whole territory. And now I think with Netflix and a new TV deal that's coming up, I think we're in a great place in North America. And if we did more, I don't think that's necessary in order to have an even bigger following. And it would then come at the cost of some other race in some other country. And so now I start to turn my attention to, we need to have a bigger presence in Asia. And if we had a fourth race in America or a fifth race, that might come at the expense of, say, an Asia expansion. And I think that's the next territory we need to really have some explosive growth in.
Go on. You're testing Colton Herta later this year. How serious are you about him and getting an American in a Formula One drive?
Well, we're very serious about anyone we put in our Formula One car. The fact that he's American is great, but we lead with performance. Nationality is on the list, but we would never select a driver for commercial reasons first. The first gate to get through is, do we think this driver, are they world champion, Grand Prix winning capable? And if the answer to that is yes, then we continue to proceed. If they happen to be British, because we're a British team, or American, because that's an important market, or from Asia, because that's important, that all that becomes kind of a commercial bonus. But first and foremost, we're here to win races. That's what our sponsor partners want. And yeah, he has been very impressive in IndyCar. He was Lando's teammate not long ago in Europe, so he has European racing background. So let's give him a go and see what he's made of.
And is Colton going to come to the Miami Grand Prix as the team's guest and just sort of get a bit of a feel and meet some of the guys and girls on the garage?
Absolutely. We'll have Colton there. We'll have both our IndyCar drivers, Pato and Felix, there. We'll have our brand ambassadors, Emerson Fittipaldi and Mika Hakkinen there. We need as much of our star power as possible to keep up with the demand of the breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and sponsor promotions that we're going to be doing all week.
Zak, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been wonderful to speak to you. Best of luck in Miami. And I think, like the rest of the world, I can't wait.
Me too. We'll see you there.
Well, Damon, what did you make of Zak?
Tom, I really like Zak. I mean, I like what I hear when I hear him talk. He makes sense to me. He says all the right things about how he empowers people. He also knows it's important for the crew not to see any kind of friction or pressure from him on Andreas and his technical side. He knows he's employed these guys. He knows they've got it. He will be saying to them, let me know what you need. If you need any help, I'm here to help. He's a great promoter of the sport, and I think he's backed Lando, and he knows he's got a great team there, and he gives good answers. I think he's the right man for that team at the moment, definitely.
Right, I'm now going to overanalyze something that Zak said. Colton Herta, I think he's very keen on Colton, just from what he said there.
Yeah, I think he's obviously spotted something in Lando, so he's quite a good talent spotter, and he understands drivers. So we still need, apart from Mario Andretti and a couple of other good Americans, Dan Gurney, obviously Phil Hill, Scott Speed, Alexander Rossi. We haven't had the full commitment yet, but maybe it has to come from their desire to be in it. And I think if the desire is grown, if the interest in the States grows, then I think US drivers will be more keen to want to do F1.
Did you see that quote from NASCAR driver Kevin Harvick recently, who said that he's worried that young American karters want to be the next Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, and they don't want to be the next Dale Earnhardt or the next IndyCar star?
Well, that is an example of what I was just trying to explain. I think that is the key, is whether it's the desire is to be a Formula One driver. Because I think we're right in suggesting that the very, very best drivers are in Formula One, because we scrutinise them to almost painful degrees, and the teams scrutinise them the demands are really, really high in our sport, and if you're not up to it, you don't last in Formula One. And I'm not saying that's not a negative against Indy or NASCAR. Obviously, the very, very best in their field, in that discipline, they succeed. But this is not for fun. The F in F1 is not for fun. It is pretty. It's intense. It can be very uncomfortable.
Ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, Zak and the other F1 bosses have got big decisions to make. How to set up the car for this new track, which tyres to use in which sessions, and which upgrades to bring. How would you prepare if you were Zak Brown at McLaren or the boss at Red Bull or Ferrari? F1 Manager 2022 is a new, fully licensed management game, putting you in the role of team principal at your favourite F1 team, ready to take on all the challenges of the 2022 season and beyond. Giving you the most authentic F1 management experience, fully licensed and brought to you in broadcast quality presentation. Drive every decision as team principal. Choose how to develop your car as the season progresses, manage your staff, and hone your race strategy for each weekend. Live the drama of Formula One on and off the track. Be prepared to react to dynamic events such as changing weather, evolving track conditions, or race incidents. Vote on upcoming rule changes to swing things in your favour and come out on top. Launching on PC, PlayStation and Xbox, summer 2022. Visit f1manager.com to wishlist the game on your platform of choice and follow at F1 Manager on Twitter to stay up to speed. Well, Damon, let's throw it forward then to the Miami Grand Prix. You've already said that you're not going. How angry are you about that?
Well, you can't do everything, Tom. You can't have everything. And also, as you know, with Sky, they have a roster. They like to cycle through the guys we have presenting, and I think it makes sense that if Jensen will probably be there because he lives in the States, so it's easy for him. I'll get my share of races during the season, and I'll see you there when I get there.
Yeah, but just of the new races, this I feel that there is more of a buzz about the Miami Grand Prix than there has been for any new race that I can think of.
Huge. I mean, it's a great venue. It's a great place. Everyone knows the name Miami. Everyone would love to visit Miami. It's going to be hot. and
well, we're just entering the wet season, aren't we? So there might be a few thunderstorms.
Could be wet as well. Wet and hot. But, they're all excited. I know that all the Sky crew are kind of tripping over themselves to want to be on that race. And it's going to be a real test, and a new thing is always great in our sport.
Well, none of the drivers, except for Valtteri Bottas, had actually been on the simulator and driven the new Miami International Autodrome when we were in Imola 2 weeks ago. But Bottas had, and he was raving about it.
Yeah.
19 turns, you've got a couple of long straights, and he thinks there's going to be a lot of overtaking.
Right, that's good.
From a performance point of view, Damon, who's going to Miami on the back foot and who's on the front foot? Who's on the front foot? Who is full of confidence and is thinking, yeah, I'm going to go there and have a good weekend?
Right. Will Mercedes? I think they probably will still be hopeful. Like you said, if it's a smooth track, hasn't got too many whopping great big bumps in it, then they might be able to get their car a bit closer to the operating optimum. I think Ferrari might be thinking, unless they've got a big upgrade package, they might be thinking, the tide has turned a little bit. I think Red Bull will be the most optimistic. I think they've got a spring in their step back. They've survived the transition from the old spec to the new spec. They brought the challenge relentlessly to Mercedes all last year, and they are clearly not unhappy with their car that they've got at the moment. Were you asking about who will be heading to Miami, Tom, with some optimism and hope? I think, Alfa Romeo, now they've got a good team in Zhou Guanyu, is actually doing a very good job as a new driver. And Valtteri is absolutely happy as can be, I think, there. He knows he's valuable to the team and they've provided him with the equipment. He's been in the mix. I think they're going to go there feeling very positive and optimistic. I think they would be looking forward to going to the next race.
The transformation in Valtteri Bottas this year has been astounding. It just in terms of His joie de vivre in and around the paddock, I think, is different to last year when he was at Mercedes, but also on track. The guy can overtake, Damon. And do you remember last year, everyone was critical of his lack of progress in the races, if he was starting a little bit further down the grid and he got stuck. So often he got stuck. This year, in this Alpha, he's overtaking. It's funny how that works, isn't it?
I think it's very interesting how the psychology of how you perceive your relationship with your team plays out in sport. I've been in teams where I wasn't quite sure whether the team was run 100% behind me, and you're kind of dithering. You're kind of going backwards and forwards. You kind of go, have I got their support, or are they trying to get the other guy to go better? Once that's cleared up, once that is established in your head, and you say, okay, we want Valtteri because he's won races and he's got all this experience, and we've got a new guy. You need to help him a bit and bring him on, make sure he doesn't sit. Then Valtteri's got a job to do, a clear role in that team, which is he's a very valuable asset to them. And he's now passing on information to strengthen the team and bring on Zhou Guanyu. And, he can pass on all of that knowledge about what it's like to be up against the very, very... He's measured himself against the very best. And he knows he wasn't found completely wanting, but that's okay because you're measuring yourself against a complete, almost, just completely once a decade, once every 20 years genius like Lewis Hamilton.
Mm. Well, if Bottas is walking on water and full of confidence, a guy who's suffering massively at the minute is Nicholas Latifi, isn't it? Making lots of mistakes. It's really tricky time for him.
It's been tough. And now he's got Alex there, who's doing a really good job. Also, Nicholas was unfortunately involved in the Abu Dhabi story, and he got a terrible time from social media for that. And I just think there comes a point where you might be asking yourself, why am I doing this? It's more pain than gain. So once that starts, then you can start making it even harder for yourself. So I hope he hasn't got into that spiral, but it's not been the fun time he'd be hoping for.
And he hasn't got the easiest of cars either. I mean, Alex Albon driving beautifully at the minute, 10th in Australia a couple of races ago, 11th in Imola, overtaking Lewis Hamilton at one point in the race. But it's not an easy car, that FW44. So if you're Nicholas Latifi and you're trying to rebuild, God, you'd wish you were in a Ferrari or Red Bull, wouldn't you?
And also the other thing, Tom, that happens is once you've been in the team and the team have assessed your abilities, so they're looking at that peak. Nicholas Latifi can do a very good job, but that's his peak, and it's not there enough times. So the team will be trying everything they can to help you instead of the driver helping the team, and then that's a very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. Now it's time to put your questions to the champ.
Questions, please. Damon Hill, do you think it's time maybe you should change your approach to racing?
Well, I don't know even how to start answering that question, but anyway.
It's the Williams leading, Damon Hill!
Some more questions, please.
Damon, were you happy with the start?
Damon Hill, congratulations for this winning, Damon. You must be satisfied.
Any questions? Yeah.
Well, Damon, it must have been absolutely gutting that last couple of laps.
Damon, it looked like he had it really under control.
Some more questions, please.
Damon Hill has done a fantastic job!
This is where you can get your question answered by Damon. It's very easy. Record it as an audio file on your phone and email it to us at askdamon@f1.com. And here's this week's first question.
Hey Damon, this is Anush here from Mumbai, and I really hope F1 comes back to India. Firstly, I would like to commend your TC's and Natalie's efforts into making this wonderful podcast. So coming to my question, back in the day when there were no simulators and less technology, how did drivers and engineers prepare for racing at a brand new track? Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Anush, I absolutely would love to come back to India. It was so much interesting stuff to do. I stayed for a week and we went around and did a little bit of a tour of India because I hadn't been there before, but it's always very stimulating, exciting place to go. So how do we learn a circuit when we haven't been there before? Obviously, looking at the map. That's about when we haven't got a simulator, we haven't got these accurate reproductions where you can kind of practice going on a circuit you've never been to before. The only way is literally to look at photographs or look at the circuit and then walk it when you get there. So you get there and you walk around it and you go, this is a bit like somewhere else. I mean, there are only so many variations you can have of a corner. They're all individual, but somehow they're similar to something else. So, if, for example, it's a 90-degree corner, then it requires a certain kind of setup. If there's lots of 180-degree corners, that's a slightly different setup again. And it depends on whether it's third gear, fourth gear, in other words, medium speed or low speed. So you can kind of compare it to somewhere else. You can say this is like Montreal or this is like Barcelona. So you'll get some rough idea, and then it's basically seat of the pants. You go out and soak up the first few laps. You're trying to get markers. You're trying to look for points around the track that kind of become familiar, because everything's unfamiliar. And then suddenly it all starts to settle down. In your mind, it becomes clearer, and then it becomes almost unconscious. You know exactly where you are within a metre or two going into a corner of where you should be.
And pre-simulators, Damon, would you buy the race, would you have the ideal setup on the car, or would it often take a couple of years before you've really perfected it?
Well, I learned a long time ago, Tom, that if you wait for the ideal setup, you'll be waiting forever. And we don't have forever. So all this stuff about, the setup was perfect. Only the guy who wins the race says his car was perfect. And that's because he wasn't having to go any faster than he was, because that's enough to win the race. So, perfection is much talked about. You can get it horribly wrong. You can have a totally undrivable setup. But then if you've got to the race and you've not got close, then you shouldn't really be doing the job.
And is that what simulators are giving the teams as we go to Miami? It gives them an opportunity to avoid getting it horribly wrong. That's what you're doing on the simulator.
You're hoping to get close, a good base point. You're like trying to get a good start point. And there's stuff, don't forget, this will be a completely green track. They'll have some support races, I imagine, going round, but Formula One is so the load on the tyres is so great, and the specific kind of rubber they use, that you do need F1 cars to do some laps. So the first few laps are going to be dusty as hell, and there'll be what they call track evolution. As they use it more, then the speed of the track goes up. You could start off with what you think is an absolutely dreadful setup. Quite often you turn up and the car's understeering and then snapping into an oversteer because it's still dusty. You come in, you make a few changes, but actually you don't need to change the car. I reckon half the time, if Formula One teams just didn't do anything, their car would get faster and faster just because the track is getting better and better. But no one ever puts that to the test.
Well, thanks, Anush. I hope Damon's managed to answer your question. Let's go to question 2 now.
Hi, Damon. This is Wes Matthews in Denver, Colorado, United States, host of 2 Formula One races this season. I'm a newer Formula One fan, watched the majority of last season. My question to you is, how do I get my wife, who has not watched any F1 races, and my 2 kiddos, ages 2 and 4, to get hooked onto Formula One for this season? What should we look for in those races or the whole season? Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Wes. So, as I understand it, you're trying to get your whole family engaged so that you can watch it all together, and you don't have to go off into a little corner of the house and lock yourself away late at night so you can watch your secret F1. So we can help. What you need to do is you need to get them to watch the Netflix series, because that, I think, has ignited interest from the younger generation. They seem to like the drivers and they think they're funny. And then maybe the technical side of it that they want to get involved with. So there's lots of places you can go to look at the science of the sport and listen to our podcast. You could listen to me and Tom and Natalie. Yeah, listen to us and we will help.
Yeah, I was going to say, less of the Netflix, more of the F1 Nation, DH. But Damon, I put this question from Wes to Zak Brown.
Yeah, well, I think if you have a look at the most recent fan survey, Lando Norris is the most popular driver with women and young adults. So I think the best way to turn your wife and your cool kids into Formula One, you got to cheer for McLaren and let him meet Lando.
Zak never misses an opportunity, does he? He really doesn't.
Well, I think he's right. I don't think he's making that up. I think Lando is very likable, and he seems to appeal to a very wide group of people. As does Daniel Ricciardo, of course. Daniel is very outgoing and a lovely chap too. They all are. I mean, they're good fun. I mean, yeah.
Actually, one more thing, Wes. I think there is a McLaren Lego car as well. which your 2 and 4-year-olds might enjoy putting together.
Which takes hours, apparently. A friend of mine got one, and he did it in one sitting, but it was like 5 hours of bolting the thing together. He just,
Oh, okay. Perhaps the 2 and the 4-year-old wouldn't enjoy doing that. And you'd enjoy doing it with your wife, Wes. Or, here's a suggestion. Why don't you take your family to a race? It's only a short 14-hour drive from Denver to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. So if you're free from October the 21st to the 23rd, we'd love to see you there, along with the 400,000 other people that are going to be there. But take them to a race. Get the merch, buy the hot dogs, soak it up.
So thank you very much indeed for those questions, guys and girls. And if you want to ask us, anyone else out there wants to ask us more questions, please do. And record it on one of your phone recording apps and then send it in as a voice message to us at askdamon@f1.com.
Yep, I'll second that. Get your questions in now and we will endeavour to answer them. Well, Damon, that's almost it for this week.
Well, have a nice time in Miami then, Tom.
Welcome to Miami. I'm very excited about it. Top 3? It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Top three.
Go on. What's your podium looking like?
Okay, this is it. Ferrari are going to bring an upgrade package that will give them just the edge. Maybe Carlos Sainz will win. I'm going to say Ferrari 1-2 with Max third.
Interesting. God, I mean, if Carlos Sainz, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all at the minute, would he? He really needs a good result this weekend. And with 70% of Miami's population being Hispanic, I think that will be a popular win.
Muy bien.
If you're being sensible, it's hard to look outside of Ferrari and Red Bull for the podium. But as Valtteri Bottas told us last week, there is going to be lots of overtaking. I am hoping that we're going to see Carlos Sainz win a race. I'd love to see him kickstart his season that way. But then I think we might have a slightly scrappy, messy race. Maybe there's a thunderstorm before the start and we're going to get a little bit of jeopardy. So if Carlos wins it, I think we're going to see Lando Norris on the podium in second place with Lewis Hamilton. I think we're going to see Lewis Hamilton do something special this weekend. I think Miami's going to bring out the best in him. So I'm going Sainz, Norris, Hamilton. That's my podium.
Okay.
Well, on that note, I think all we need to say is thank you for listening. And F1 Nation will be back on Tuesday, the 10th of April from Miami. We'll be doing that from inside the paddock there. And if you haven't already, please hit the follow button on your podcast app so you can get our next episode as soon as it's released.
F1 Nation is produced by Formula One
and Audio Boom Studios. Thanks for listening.